Welcome back to Small Caps. My name's Kerry Stevenson, and today I've got something a little bit different for you. I am talking to the Chief Executive Officer of a company by the name of Demem. We'll get into that in a moment. The ASX code is DEM. Write that down, ladies and gentlemen. You're in for a treat. Please welcome to Small Caps, Andreas Kroell. Nice to see you, Andreas.
Hello, good morning, Kerry. Hello to Sydney.
Yes, I'm afraid you're in Melbourne, but you're coming out of lockdown slowly, and hopefully we'll go into a little bit of if that's impacted the company at all. But I have to be honest with you, I hadn't heard of Demem before getting told that I was going to come and have a chat with you today. It's a fascinating company, and just a little bit for our listeners today, it is a water and waste water treatment company, and you've got technology behind this. You've had a great year, profits are up, and you've won some contracts. So let's first of all just explain to our listeners a little bit about De.mem. But before we do it, unusual name. What does De.mem? Where did that name come from?
Well, Demem stands for decentralized membranes. So it covers the two sides to our business. Decentralized water treatment, that means we offer containerized modular water treatment to our customers. We go on site, we work mainly with industrial customers. We go on site directly into the factory, treat the customers' wastewater, or help them with producing very clean water required for their production. So it all happens on site. In contrary to large centralized urban water treatment plants. So that's our product. And then the membranes, that's the particular technology which we deploy. It's a certain type of high quality filter. We manufacture that ourselves in our facility in Singapore. And we use the membranes as the key component, a little bit as the intel inside in our containerized water treatment plants.
Is that what makes you, is this membrane specific to Demem, and does that make you different from other wastewater treatment companies out there?
Yes, so we have a range of technologies. Water and wastewater treatment is always about deploying a range of different technologies, because there is a range of contaminants that can be in wastewater. Many different things like oil, solids, biological contamination, bacteria, viruses, and so on. So we address these different types of contaminants through a range of membranes. Membranes are a porous structure, microporous structure, tiny little pores that let water molecules pass through. Contaminants that are bigger than the pores, they are rejected. They cannot pass through, they stay behind them. And the different types of membranes we offer, they vary, for example, in the pore size. And that makes these different types of membranes suited for particular applications, gives them a certain sweet spot. And we are special, in a number of applications. So for example, within this segment of hollow fiber membranes, we are the ones which can produce membranes with the smallest pores, which gives our product very high quality treated water. Or then to mention another product, that particular product is called a forward osmosis membrane. It's used for concentration applications, concentration of beverages, for example, where we go into the customer's production. And this membrane process, in that particular case, it's very, very gentle to the beverage, to the feed that is to be concentrated. Which means it leaves all the nutrients within the beverage. It leaves the taste pretty much unchanged. And so we're looking at a range of technologies which go into our turnkey systems a little bit as the intel inside, as the key component.
When you say beverages, Andreas, are you talking the wine industry? Are you talking about the soft drink industry? Can you just explain beverages a little bit?
Sure. So, the food and beverage segment as a whole, that's a big target sector for Demem, both for the waste side but then also for process and production related matters. And this concentration product which we offer, that's one particular product within many, and it's applicable to many subsegments of the beverage industry. So it can be used for coffee, tea, which are products which are very famous in Asia in particular. We haven't done so far yet. It can potentially be deployed for beer and wine as well. It has big applications for fruit juice and for milk and dairy concentration. So it's a pretty widely applicable technology.
Yeah, Andreas, it's interesting, isn't it? Because water is, the elixir of life, I guess, and everyone always talks about, and especially here in Australia, we've had massive droughts, etc. So I guess Demem is could you potentially take contaminated water, and would your particular technology allow that to become potable water again?
Absolutely. So that's exactly where membranes come in. So membranes are a product within a fragmented water treatment market, which cover high value add applications. So when it comes to recycling water back into the production or to generating potable water, that's when typically membranes are used, because membranes are a physical barrier. I talked a little bit about this microporous structure, which makes it impossible for contaminants to pass through. So that creates like a very high value add product around membranes. So membranes, again, they typically come in when high quality treated water is required, and that's in particular for potable water generation for recycling applications the case.
Can you use this type of application in high saline water? For example, some parts, I understand the mining industry quite a lot. Are you working with the mining industry at all with your technology?
Yes, so the mining industry is still our strongest segment. With Australia accounting for something like 80 or 90% of the overall revenues, mining customers account for the highest share within the Australian revenues of Demem. High salinity water, that's a typical scenario for us. And to desalinate water, that's where membranes actually are required. That's where membranes have to be used. That's the state of the art to desalinate water. Water can be high in salinity, whether it's groundwater or whether it's seawater. So both are typically high in salinity and need to be desalinated. And yes, that's exactly one of the key strengths of Demem, to work with customers from the mining and other industries to help them desalinate water.
Is there still growth in that sector for you? You just said, excuse me, it's 80 to 90% here in Australia. Is there still a lot of growth there for Demem in that particular sector?
There's a lot of growth for Demem. I mean, for Demem, obviously, we're still a pretty young company. So we're in business for not much more than 4 years. We're still a young company and growing, and we still have a lot of room, obviously, to grow. But that being said, also, the mining and other industries are subject to strengthening regulations. So the regulators in different countries, in Australia, the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, comes up with stricter and stricter laws and rules. Mining companies, they have to abide by these rules, and they have to implement stricter water and wastewater treatment systems, better water and wastewater treatment systems. And that's to a good extent what's driving our business, that customers come to us because for regulatory reasons, they have to upgrade their water and wastewater treatment facilities.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned just before that the membranes are made up in Singapore, I believe. What's the reasoning behind that?
The company's origin is in Singapore. So the company was originally venture funded in Singapore, has received funds also indirectly from the Singapore government. Water treatment is a key industry in Singapore. Membranes in particular are a key research segment in the Singapore R&D environment. In the early days of Demem, we've worked a lot with leading universities in Singapore. We have a long-term partnership with one particular institution from Singapore, from which we've licensed a number of technologies. And around these initiatives, that's how the technology angle and the membrane manufacturing of Demem has been built.
Licensing the technology, would Demem look at, I guess not outsourcing, but would you look at other people taking on projects and using your technology, so you become, I guess, the overseer of it?
Potentially for other markets, yes. So, well, at this stage for our company, the focus is still a little bit on Australia, because we're seeing a lot of growth here, and we have a great customer base already, which is good for further expansion in the next 1 or 2 years. But potentially, once we've reached the 50 or 60 million in revenues in Australia, then the international expansion will be back on the agenda. And then once it's about going into markets like China, then that would be the typical arrangement. So then we would rather at looking at partnering up with someone and licensing the technology or so, then well, going directly into customer relationships.
Well, let's talk development and let's talk numbers. You've recently come out with your quarterly, which was that unexpected? The numbers are pretty good. Let's just talk to our listeners about that quarterly report, the fact that you have beaten expectations, and you're saying that the December quarter looks very strong as well.
Yeah, so it was certainly not unexpected. So we've consistently increased our cash receipts, the incoming cash from customers over the quarters this year for the calendar year 2020. So we knew that things were going quite well towards the second half of the year, and that's in line with the updates that we've given to the market. Based on, well, the recurring business segments and then the contracted business for the projects segment, the bigger water treatment equipments, the containers which we sell, we have good visibility about what's coming in the next few months. And that's why we have given guidance to the ASX, why we have given guidance to the market for the fourth quarter. So based on what we see, what is contracted, we pretty much know what's coming in for the fourth quarter. And so we know that it's going to be another good quarter for the company.
Well, for current shareholders out there, do you have, I have to ask this question, Andreas, do you have a dividend policy coming up in the near future? And then I'm going to talk about a couple of other things, but I have to ask.
Well, a dividend policy, of course, we hope that we will be able to pay a dividend to shareholders soon. The point is, at this time, the focus of our company is pretty much on growth. There is so many growth opportunities for us, not only in Australia, but also overseas. So at this stage, the money we have, it's wisely invested in these opportunities, and shareholders, they will benefit from the rising share price. But we certainly want to make shareholders happy and be able to pay a dividend in the foreseeable future. Absolutely.
That's good to hear. Now, there is an elephant in the room. It's called the C word, COVID, wastewater treatment. Now, there has been stories in the news about COVID being found in wastewater. There's two questions here. Has COVID impacted on the business at all? Number one. And number two, is Demem getting involved in that sort of wastewater treatment with the COVID issue?
Well, I mean, you've obviously seen the numbers. We've just talked about the numbers. So we've come through that year quite well. So we have just increased our guidance to 15 to 18 million in cash receipts for the year. So I think after all, the year was not too bad for us. It is certainly fair to say that COVID has slowed growth a little bit still, and we might have seen a couple of million more or so if it hadn't been for COVID. So in particular in the earlier months of the year, March, April, May, big corporates, which account for most of our customers, they held back with investments into new equipment, whether water or wastewater treatment or whatsoever, in view of the uncertainties in the market. Companies were just very reluctant to spend new money. So I think growth would likely have been a little bit higher, but to some extent we're also benefiting from that at the moment, because there is a backlog of projects, of upgrades, because the needs to upgrade infrastructure or to build new infrastructure, the requirement, the need, that doesn't disappear. So I think that will likely also help us over the coming months to generate a bit more business. After all, I think we came through this situation reasonably well and looking positively ahead into the future. Coming to the second part of the question, our products, membranes, yes, they are technology which is deployed to remove viruses and bacteria, microbial contamination from wastewater streams. So the particular products which we offer, they can be used to remove COVID viruses from sewage. It's not the key focus of our business, but maybe a side aspect which might drive a little bit more investment into upgrading technologies in that segment.
And two more questions before we finish up, Andreas. You mentioned earlier about the expansion for the company. Right now, the focus is Australia. I'm just interested in the timing for expansion. You mentioned China. That must be and I guess India could be a massive market for Demem as well.
Absolutely. So I mean, from a macroeconomic point of view, there is almost unlimited space for us to expand this business. Obviously, we have to do it step by step. So we have small outposts internationally already in Singapore. We have a small foothold in Germany through a company which we acquired last year. So we have a presence in international locations. Our business, our customer base, as you can see if you look into our investor presentation, for example, that's mainly around large corporates, multinational organizations which operate in different locations. So our plan is indeed, and we're already doing that in some cases, to work with these multinational corporations in different locations in different countries. Which is an interesting angle for us to expand the business. And so that's definitely going to happen over the coming years.
Yeah, because you've got a very good relationship, I believe, with Rio Tinto. They've obviously got projects globally. Are you just working with Rio at the moment in Australia, or are there plans to expand with them in some of their other locations around the world?
Rio has been a customer for us in Australia so far. We've worked with most of the larger Australian mining corporations. Obviously, because we are a young company still, at this stage, this is still pretty much focused on Australia. But again, that's the low-hanging fruits for us, the easy way to expand the business, to go with customers which know us, which know that we're delivering good quality products and services, and help them in other locations.
Andreas, it's a fascinating story. And of course, water and wastewater treatment is very important, and it's something that globally people need. Only 4 years old as a company. Just to finish up, what would you like to tell our listeners, who are mainly investors, about why you think now is the time for people to sit up, take notice of Demem and what your future expansion plans are.
Well, Kerry, I think now is a great time to look at Demem. So we're slowly coming out of COVID now, looking at the macroeconomic situation. There is a backlog for investment into water treatment infrastructure, into water treatment systems and upgrades. Corporates are coming back to us as customers, looking at the infrastructure, the municipal segment in general in Australia. There is a lot of need for upgrades to the existing systems in place. So I think it's definitely a good time now from a business perspective, and I look positively ahead into the next 1 or 2 years for Demem.
Well, I've been asked this question before from some people. They write to me and they say, ask them about their cash. Do you need to go back to the market and raise any money, or because that obviously can dilute shareholders, or are you well funded for your expansion into the future?
No, as we've communicated on that in our recent ASX releases. So we have a cash balance of 5 million plus on the bank accounts. The cash operating cash burn is decreasing, and we're still quite convinced to see a break-even situation in the foreseeable future. So there is no need for the company to raise funds. Obviously, if there is an extraordinary investment opportunity for us, build and operate, that's a big part of our business model, where we invest into water treatment systems, lease them out to our customers, which requires upfront capex for Demem. Only in a scenario like that, it could be a consideration for the company. But obviously, at the moment, the company is well funded. We see ourselves rather undervalued, so we're not in a position that we have to go back to the market.
Well, I think there's two positives out of that: lower operating costs, increasing profitability across the year. Andreas Kroell, it's been absolutely delightful to talk to you today. As I said to our listeners earlier, the ASX code is DEM. Lots of expansion coming on. It's been delightful to talk to you today, and I'm sure we'll speak again in the near future. Congratulations, and we look forward to the future growth of Demem.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Kerry. Thank you.